Uh, Hi. I figured we should just start this one. We have a gray mini. We're going to make it gray with some celestial gray as its base coat. For the base skin tone, I created a mix of the Fang and Lotharan blue to create this grayish, bright baby blue kind of tone. I don't really know what you describe it as, but it's going to go over the entire miniature skin sections here. The paint mixed up, make sure it's nice and thin. We don't want to be clogging up details, and just pick out all the skin areas on the miniature, including the head and the arms. The Kroot, a captivating species unearthed by the industrious Tau Empire, originate from the primal verdant world of Peck. Initially primitive in their ways, the Kroot's narrative took a dramatic turn when an onslaught of orcs descended upon their homeworld. In a twist of fate, the Kroot embraced the orcs' essence by consuming their flesh, an act that not only endowed them with the knowledge to forge FTL-capable voidcraft and advanced weaponry, but also propelled them well beyond the confines of their own planet. Though they expanded their domain, the specter of the orcs' invasions loomed incessantly. In a bid to counter this perpetual threat, the Kroot forged an alliance with the Tau Empire under the guidance of Angor Proc in 844 M38. Thus began the epoch of camaraderie, culminating in the war in the Place of Union, where Tau and Kroot Warrior stood at one, reclaiming Kroot space from the Greenskin menace. Ever since, the Kroot's core worlds have stood steadfast in defense of the greater good, albeit with an implicit caveat of adequate compensation. Despite their newfound technological prowess and allegiance, the Kroot's essence remains deeply rooted in the untamed wilderness. They purposely eschew the comforts of modern conveniences, focusing their ingenuity on weaponry such as rifles and voidcraft while shunning advancements that would veer them away from their primal essence. The Imperium's first encounter with the Kroot occurred during the Damocles Crusade. Amidst the dense jungles of Silkel, hope I'm pronouncing that right, as the Brimlock 17th Dragoons made their inexorable advance, they were ensnared in a deadly ambush orchestrated by the stealthy Kroot, their forward scouts falling silent before they could even relay the impending danger. Across the expanse of their various homeworlds, the Kroot thrive within a clan-based society overseen by their elders. These elders dispatch their brethren across the galaxy, often as mercenaries, seeking genetic absorptions to fortify their clan's lineage. Thus, the Kroot mercenary pursuits serve not only as a source of livelihood, but also as a means of genetic proliferation, their war spheres traversing the cosmos in pursuit of contracts, despite the exclusivity of their arrangement with the Tau Empire. We want to bring some of the blue back, some of the depth back. So we're going to take some Space Wolves contrast and just paint the entire miniature in it. We're not going to be using washes or dry brushing for the skin today. We're going to paint up with volumes, and this contrast is going to serve as our quote-unquote wash to get in all the recesses of this miniature here. With that dried up, we're going to take some Screaming Skull, put it on our palette, thin it out, and we're going to start picking out the various scaly areas, I guess, the belly plates of the Kroot, the various spines around its legs and its toes, and fingernails. Do this across all the arms and the leg. It's all the same tone. I'm also going to pick out the lower jaw of the Kroot here. Just give it a bit more visual interest in the face area. I do like this lower, lighter beak color on all of my Kroot, so it will be continued over here. That done, we're going to do a quick leather here. We're going to start off by doing Rhinox hide as the base coat, but we won't be using washes and dry brush to get our highlights and depth here. What we are going to do though is continue to pick out the Rhinox hide on all areas of the miniature. He has like these little shorts he wears, so make sure that's all done. With that done, take some Blood Reaver flesh as your light tone there, and just start kind of painting it on the areas that would be facing the light, so the upper parts of the shorts, various areas that would be receiving highlights. We're going to want to leave the Rhinox hide in the areas that would be dark, and with this being, you know, the first of our gradient here, it's going to be the one that goes over the majority of the lit up sections of the pants. Once we are done with the Blood Reaver flesh highlights, we're going to highlight a smaller section of the previous highlights with Mournfang brown. So this is going to go on top of the previous layer, not entirely covering it, as this is just going to be, you know, the brighter section of the highlights. We're going to do the same very extremely minimally with the Steel Legion drab. Unfortunately, the footage I had for that corrupted. With all the browns and Screaming Skull picked out, we're going to pick out all those areas with an Argrax Earthshade wash. This is going to give depth to the various plates on the belly and the nails, while also unifying our various colors that we use to build up our depth and highlights on our shorts, so the lines between the various color tones don't look so dramatic. Ensure you don't get any wash on the plates of the belly. We're going to want those still that Screaming Skull tone. We just want the wash in the belly lines, basically. For the toes, just cover it. Now, using our same base skin tone mix we made earlier, start picking out the highlights of the flesh. I'm going to do mainly on the arm here to show you exactly what it looks like. I'm basically just looking at picking out the areas that are going to be closest to the light source in the base skin tone that we just applied. I don't want to get it into the recesses too much, where it will cut off the shading we created earlier with the contrast, but I do not want to leave any of these as islands either. I want all the highlights I add to be connected to one another to create a natural, organic look to it. With the previous layers done, I would then add a little bit of Corax White to the mix to get an even lighter shade of the base skin tone. And just like the shorts, I'm now picking out an even smaller area of these flesh highlights. So we create like a 3-tone highlight to depth effect here. We're going to do that throughout the arm and throughout the head and throughout the entire miniature, wherever the blue skin is that would be receiving light. This process takes a while. It's not quick. You really have to kind of, you know, judge where the light sources are coming from and how far these highlights would you know, descend down a muscle group or whatever, as well as, you know, paying attention to things like the top of his toes here, like the part of the foot above the toes would also be receiving light. It's under the shadow of the knee a little bit, but it can still receive light from, you know, various different angles, even from a, you know, overhead illuminated light source. And so it's important to remember that where your highlights go and where they should be. And once you've done that, you get this really neat effect of, you know, blue flesh. This recipe could be used for Tau as well. I would, you know, probably use a shade of Drakenhof instead of the Space Wolf contrast though for Tau flesh. For the cape, we're going to start off by just picking it out with Corn Red. With it picked out in Corn Red and that entirely dry, We're then going to clean off our wet palette here and get all of our various colors that we're going to want for our cape freehand, or our poncho freehand, should I say. So I have my various reds, various oranges. I'm adding a couple of yellows, flash gits, and Uriel yellow to be specific. I just added 2 different purples, that's Zaraz purples and Nagath Knight, and then the blues are Lotharin blue and Barahoth blue. I've added a Moot green to the palette as well, which does get used, but then the Warboros green that I just added does not, and some Abaddon black. Now for the next little bit here, I'm just going to be freehanding a cape, a Peruvian style poncho, using the colors I just put down on my palette, and we're going to have some lore go on in the background. The Kroot, hailing from the planet Peck, bear humanoid forms but trace their evolutionary lineage to avian origins, evident in their vestigial beaks and lightweight bone structure. Their skin, adorned with barbed spines akin to their quills, display a wide array of hues influenced by their diet and tribal customs. Maturing swiftly, Kroot reach adulthood by 12 and can live over a century, their skin weathering with age. Despite their seemingly fragile appearance, Kroot possess powerful musculature, enabling rapid movements and potent strikes. Clad in primitive attire, they favor harnesses crafted from animal hides and adorned with bones and amulets. Studies reveal their brains possess distinct hemispheres, with the larger frontal lobe governing logic and memory, while the less developed rear hemisphere fosters imagination. This dichotomy possibly explains their practical outlook and technological stagnation. The quills atop their heads serve as sensory extensions, aiding in environmental perception. Enhanced olfactory senses and pupilless eyes allow for superior tracking abilities, making them very elusive prey. Kroot excrete a unique oily sweat, versatile in its properties, from heat resistance to pheromone-based communication. Their adeptness in language acquisition, facilitated by posture and tone mimicry, complements their verbal communication of clicks and whistles, potentially augmented by pheromones. The Kroot possess a fascinating ability to evolve by absorbing traits from other species, through consuming their flesh. This process, called shaping, leads to diverse appearances among Kroot warbands across the galaxy, with each group reflecting the traits they've assimilated. Guiding this evolutionary path are the Kroot leaders known as Shapers, who instinctively identify beneficial traits in defeated foes and direct their kindred accordingly. This practice is deeply intertwined with Kroot religious beliefs, as they believe that consuming the flesh of fallen warriors allows them to retain their spirits. The Kroot's digestive system is remarkably efficient, breaking down organic matter into energy and incorporating useful DNA strands into their genetic makeup. However, this process isn't without risks, sometimes leading to evolutionary dead ends like the lumbering Krootox and aggressive Kroothounds. These variants are often utilized by Kroot for various purposes, from labor to combat. While the Kroot have a vast array of evolved forms, there are certain species that are forbidden to consume, including Tyranids, anything tainted with chaos, and the Tau, due to their historical significance and relationship with them. Additionally, they cannot effectively interact with Necron living metal without any sort of dire consequences. It's a Necron. You can't eat the Necron. These evolutionary quirks and taboos add depth to the Kroot's culture and psychology, shaping their interactions with the galaxy at large. While appearing as a simple, pre-industrial society at first glance, the Kroot exhibit complexities that hint at concealed technological prowess. Observations by Tau on Peck suggest the existence of hidden industrial capabilities, possibly nestled within mountainous terrain. It's speculated that the Kroot deliberately restrict their technological advancement, reserving it for weaponry and spacefaring endeavors to fortify their species, but not forgetting the wilderness they come from. At the forefront of their arsenal is the Kroot rifle, a weapon fashioned from ancestral fighting staffs, now augmented with blades on both stock and barrel for lethal close combat. Originally firing solid projectiles, the Tau enhanced it to discharge charged projectiles akin to their pulse rifles, a modification swiftly adopted across Kroot ranks. However, the Kroot's armory extends beyond the rifle. They employ the formidable Kroot gun affixed to the backs of the Krootox, and the elongated Kroot hunting rifle, offering a potentially greater range but requiring removal of its blades. Here we have the completed cape. There's things I would like to do to it, maybe change it up for the next one, but I'm quite pleased for my first freehand Peruvian cape. Take some iron hand steel or lead belcher and coat the entirety of the gun's, well, receiver and barrel and muzzle and knife with it. Like all my metallics, I give this a shade of Nuln Oil. Using some Rhinox hide, I simply picked out the, I guess you'd call it the body of the gun, the wooden bits, the various wooden furniture on this rifle here. Using some Mornfang Brown, I drew some wood grain into the wood here. I probably would have used Steel Legion Drab, as this doesn't come out quite as bright as I'd like it to, but I'm still pleased with it. Now we're going to create a kind of like a heat wear effect on the gun here. We're going to start off with a blue wash of a Drakenhof Nightshade and, you know, just kind of paint it over the barrel. Next up, we're going to take some Caribou Crimson and paint it basically in adjacent to where we just painted the blue streak here. We're going to overlap a little bit onto the blue, but we're not covering it all. We're extending this wear. And finally, we're going to use some Argrax Earthshade all the way back, overlapping the Caribou Crimson a little bit, and also, you know, adding more area to the muzzle that's been damaged by the heat. Now for the crest, I base coated with a Baylor Brown before giving it multiple dry brushes. The first of the dry brushes was with a Everland Sunset. I then did Uriel Yellow before giving everything a dry brush with Flash Gets Yellow, and then a wash, if you will, with Imperial Fist Contrast. This got my depths, my highlights, and a really unique crest color you don't normally see on Kroot. While I glue the mini and set up the grand reveal shots, please remember to like and subscribe. I'll be back next week with another video. Thanks again.